On Good Friday, Jesus is brought by the religious leaders to the Roman authorities to be put on trial. After false testimony, he is convicted of a crime he did not commit, and he's sentenced to death. He's beaten, he's mocked, ridiculed. His beard is torn out, his clothes are ripped off of him. He's whipped, flogged, and he's forced to carry his own torture device up the hill called Golgotha, at which point he is nailed to the cross to bring about his execution. Jesus' first words are, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." In Jesus' ministry, he often said things that confused people. In the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, he says, "You have heard it said to love your neighbor and to hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy and pray for them, and so become children of your Father in heaven." And when he says become children of your Father in heaven, he means to take on the character of God, to be like God. What this tells us is that it is God's heart to both love and forgive his own enemies. And thank goodness for that, because I have been an enemy of God, you have been an enemy of God, and many still are enemies of God. But Jesus' words tell us that the enemies of God can indeed be forgiven. In fact, we are the ones who put Christ on that cross. We are the crowds that were mocking him. We are the centurions who beat him and nailed him to the cross. We are the high priests who falsely accused him, and Pontius Pilate who falsely convicted him. So when Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," he's not only talking about the centurions and the crowds. He's talking about you and me. In fact, the very cross that we put him on is the cross that brings our forgiveness, the cross that brings our redemption. All sinners need to be forgiven by God through the blood of Jesus Christ. But imagine for a moment if you were the one on the cross. And that shouldn't be too hard to do, because in fact, Jesus was taking the punishment that was meant for us. What would be your first words? Would you cry out in agony, begging to be released from the torture? Would you cry out in anger, spewing vile comments to the people who put you on the cross in the first place? Or might you try to be bold and claim that nothing could break you, that your faith is too strong for those who persecute you? How could it be that we could have the same response Jesus did, to pray for the very people who are putting us in pain? Well, when we truly become like Christ, when we truly become children of our Father in heaven, we take on the character of Christ. We can love our enemies the way he did. How do we do that? Well, we have to practice it. We have to start right here and right now, today. So who is an enemy that you can love? Well, it might look like a person that you have had a disagreement with, maybe a political disagreement, maybe a disagreement about how to respond to this virus. Maybe it's an elected official that you didn't vote for, that you're convinced is the epitome of evil on the earth. You need to love that person from the heart, genuinely. You need to care for them. You need to pray for them. If necessary, you need to forgive them. Maybe it's a coworker or a boss or some other person who you feel has done you wrong. Genuinely, from the heart, love them, pray for them, forgive them. Maybe it's someone that you're in isolation with right now. And while I would hope that we would never call our spouse, our children, our brother or sister, or our parent an enemy, when we're upset at someone and aggravated and they're annoying us and they've gotten on our last nerve, they feel like an enemy. And sometimes they're the hardest ones to forgive and to love well. But today, forgive them. Love them well, from the heart, genuinely. Choose to shower them with kindness. In doing so, you will become like Jesus. You will become a child of your Father in heaven.